said to my wife, I'm gonna start working for my dad and open up a martial arts school and teach self-defense. And she looked at me and she went, how are you gonna do that? And as soon as she said that, I knew we were getting divorced. Like within a year, we were divorced.
Welcome to another episode of the Empire Podcast. This is an episode of The Inside Look. I'm Bedros Keuilian, and I have a very special guest today, Tony Blauer. Tony, how are you?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. Very good. Thanks for coming over, man. So we just got done with you teaching fear management to my team here at Fit Body Bootcamp headquarters. And of course, the Empire Podcast is all about entrepreneurial growth, building empires. And you not only are an entrepreneur, but you have a very unique job as an entrepreneur. You work with some high-level people in the military, as well as entrepreneurs, who have to manage fear. Tell us what you do.
My main business is really training law enforcement, military, professional martial artists how to teach people self-defense. And what I realized probably about 3 decades ago is we can have all these theories about the mechanics of self-defense and how we do stuff, but if we can't manage our fear, we can't make stuff happen. And that evolution and that research led to the development of a program called No Fear, K-N-O-W fear, and just understanding how fear influences everything we do in our life and how it changes. It can be used as a fuel, or it stymies your growth. So I kind of branched out in that entrepreneurial spirit of like, well, my passion for 4 decades has been training professionals how to teach hand-to-hand self-defense. I saw a greater calling and a bigger thing, and how do I make the world a little bit safer? And this epiphany one day was, man, if we taught people how to look at fear differently, that would change their lives.
What helped you get that epiphany about fear?
Just, I was struggling with it from day one. You know, I get asked all the time, how did I get started? And you know, I say, well, my dad told me I should sign up for self-defense, but you know, you peel that onion, you go, well, what made you want to take self-defense? Well, I wanted to be like Bruce Lee. Well, Bruce Lee he didn't have his movies out at that time. So what was it? It was, I was afraid of getting mugged or attacked or kidnapped, or I had these crazy visions as a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. So it was my fear and emoting that, sharing that with my parents. My dad said, well, why don't you take, self-defense? And then studying this stuff, I realized that no matter how good I got as an athlete, kicking, striking, blocking, I still had the same fear. I was like, well, that's wrong. Like, now that I'm good, why am I still scared?
That's a huge epiphany, because Dad says, hey, go take self-defense and you're gonna be better.
Right.
You're not gonna have this fear anymore. Well, you know how to kick and strike and defend yourself, but there's still this fear. So what made you start digging deeper into it? Like, what gives you this introspectiveness that you dig deeper and find out where fear comes from?
And you hit the nail on the head there, introspective. I was always, whether you look at it as a gift or a curse, if you say to me, hey, let's go to lunch, where do you want to go? I'll go, where do you want to go? And you go, well, where you were? Like, I overthink things to a fault, but in some areas of my life, that's a problem. In other areas, it kind of gave birth to this, where, I would ask somebody, what if he has a gun? Or what if this happens? What if there's multiple assailants? And their answer didn't satisfy me. And they'd say, well, you just do this. And my heart would start racing. I'd get adrenaline. And I go, there's like, something's wrong here. And it's like all the research now coming out on breathing and the relationship on your exhale and stuff. That's trial and error, where people are like using technology like heart rate monitors and going, hey, when you do this, you down-regulate your system. But this is like how long have we been breathing for? Right. Like as a species, right? But now, it's only now that all this research is coming out. So I just did that same stuff for 30, 40 years, studied violence. And it didn't matter what was going on. I would still look at the behaviors of a soldier, of a cop, of a citizen. And I started to notice that what made things happen was how they managed their fear, not what their movement was.
Gotcha. So let's move that now into the entrepreneurial space. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur and I've got this great idea for a product or a service. Now I know there's other products like this out there, and I want to go out there and sell it on the internet and demonstrate it using social media, but I've got this fear of, well, I don't want to look stupid on the internet. I don't want to create a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel and people start judging me and criticizing me. I certainly don't want people to to hate on me. I mean, I
Right.
want their approval. I want their validation. What makes people fearless as entrepreneurs? In other words, you said some people can use fear as fuel,
Right.
and others get stifled by it. Have you figured out what stifles some and fuels others?
A lot of people like to say things like, "This guy was born to do this," or "This guy." If you really research like greatness, you'll find that there may be some like freaks. Like you can say, "Hey, Mozart was a freak. Like at the young age, he could do that." But if you study, I don't know if you had a chance to read the book, The Talent Code, and some of these other books on neuroscience and learning, but you find out that there was actually an experience and a condition that predisposed the person to that. Now there had to be some passion and some art and all that. And so to come back to the entrepreneurial side, I think a lot of it is just when you figure out what your why is, which is I'm really passionate about stuff. And I ask people, a lot of times I'll say to like my team, I'll go, if there was no money and there was no rent and there was no food, what would you be doing? Like, would you still be getting people in shape and teaching people how to run their lives and be better? Like I said to you, what a great crew, great energy, and you thank me, say, yeah, they're great. And I look at that as a businessman. I go, that's on you. It's how you lead them that inspires that. It's not just them. And so you remember the author Wayne Dwyer?
Yeah.
Right? So he asks a question. He says, if you looked in the mirror and you didn't know how old you were, how old would you think you were? I remember reading that going, holy shit. And then he says, if you didn't know where you lived and you looked at all the places in the world, where would you want to live and why aren't you living there? And if you didn't know what you did and you looked at all the things you could do, what would you do and why aren't you doing that? And that's all beautiful, but it comes down to what our talk is always about. It's fear. Like, why aren't you moving? Why aren't you getting this job? Why aren't you? And so no matter what someone wants to do, whether it's I got a better widget or I want to start an Instagram, what causes the hesitation is always fear. And there's no like secret. People always go, well, what's the secret panacea? My father-in-law asks me now for, I've been married for 25, 26 years. And every year he comes to me and he says, show me a move, show me one move. I go, Fred, there is no move. Like everyone's looking for the secret move. And there isn't one. What there is self-awareness. Just really going, what's holding me back here? Why aren't I doing this? Because you could have, like there's lots of guys that have access to money, but they can't be entrepreneurs, right? And there's some people who think that like entrepreneurship is like it's a gene you gotta have, gotta have it. So that's an interesting discussion too.
Yeah. Well, for me, I know it's a learned behavior because I don't come from a line of entrepreneurs at all.
Right.
Going back to what you said, my why is so big. My need for freedom and experience and to give my kids the lifestyle that I never had,
Right.
being an immigrant to this country, I'm willing to deal with any kind of hate, criticism, loss of reputation, loss of money, loss of market share, all those potentials for the upside of what if I don't lose reputation, what I don't lose money, what if I don't lose market share, then oh my gosh, I can give my kids and my family the life and the experiences and the freedom that I didn't have because I know I'm unemployable. Like no one will give me a job. The 2 jobs that I've had in my life, I got fired from both. And I knew that I had to go create something where I could be my own boss.
Right.
But like everyone else, I was afraid of the what ifs. Now, there was no Instagram then and Facebook. It was just, what if I actually create this software? My first thing was called High Tech Trainer. My first product is a software product. What if it fails? And what if I get laughed at by the fitness industry? Because it was an online workout software back in 2003.
Wow.
But then I would always weigh that out against my big why, which is, well, if I don't do it, I'm gonna have to go out and work for someone, which means now I've got a 9 to 5, which means I can't control the lifestyle and the experiences and the money that I'm making, which means my kids are gonna grow up probably broke or living middle income like I am.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. So my reason why was big enough to help me overcome my fears. Do you find it if there's someone's really clear on their reason why, that helps them overcome their fears?
100%. And then, but there's still lots of people who have the talent or the passion, but something's holding them back. That's why I always say there's no situational awareness without self-awareness. And the self-awareness part is that ability to say to yourself or to a confidant, like, I'm really scared to do this. And then having people around you that go, well, that's why you need to do that. But it all comes back to, you could have created like software for something else. But, while you were saying that, like internally, I'm smiling going, you've always been physical, I'm guessing, and you like working out. And if you were in your previous life, if you were frustrated with shit going on and you just got fired from that job, you probably went to the gym and hit the weights and hit a bag and did some stuff.
Yeah.
That was your intuition. That was your self-awareness that went, well, I'm not going to code and build a website company. I'm going to figure out how to build a fitness app. And that was just an intuitive leap. And then you had the self-confidence. There was some clarity there, but that clarity is a self-awareness. So my big thing now is trying to get people to understand how important self-awareness is. And then self-awareness will actually create clarity to the fear spike. The fear spike is now the beacon of where you got to go.
So I've got this theory that most people are actually self-aware. They just dilute it and make their self-awareness fuzzy by taking other people's opinions into consideration, other people's thoughts into consideration. But most of us, if you kind of, going back to the onion, you peel away everything, everyone knows what they need to do, but they go, yeah, but my friend says I should do it this way, or society says I might want to do it this way, or I should go get a job and stay there for the next 20 years and retire with a gold Rolex watch and a pension plan. Even though the self-awareness says, you know what, you are unemployable and you've got this amazing idea and it can gain traction as an entrepreneur. So how do some people go, you know what? This whole software thing right now that I'm making, because this is what happened. I was making high-tech trainer. I didn't know how to software code or program, so I found one of my personal training clients whose husband was a software programmer, and I said, hey, if I give you 25% of the business, will you take this vision that I have? I'll make the workout videos, but then would you make it work on at the time it was a Palm Pilot. This is pre-iPhones, right?
Nice.
Would you make it work on this Palm Pilot? For those of you who don't know what a Palm Pilot is, just do a Wikipedia search these days, and it's probably in the history archives. But when I would get stressed out and freaked out over the idea of how the fuck do I make software work, I would go back to what was my true north, which is, you know what? I'm gonna go get a win right now. A win is I'm gonna go to the gym, train legs, train back, train chest, train shoulders, because that's where I'm good at. That's my zone of genius. Get the endorphins, get the dopamine, get the happy hormones going, and then come back and tackle this bullshit of a software product, which I know is gonna have a positive outcome in the end, because I'll be helping people, but the process of code and technology, I'd rather eat a bullet, right? And so people, I believe, are aware, self-aware, but they override it with other people's thoughts. How do they stop that?
So while you're talking, I remembered when the iPhones just first came out, and I'm an Apple junkie, and there was this guy, this buddy of mine, and so he sees me, and like I'm loving my iPhone. It was first generation, so he goes out and gets one, and he shows up. And he goes, I really like it. I'm really digging it, but the sound on it is horrible. So he's using it and he gets a call and he's talking and he goes like, I can't hear shit. I can hear the person, but it's really muffled. And he's using it and I look at it and I go, peel the plastic off it. And he goes, what? And he just had never noticed. And so my vision here is he had awareness, but there was another deeper level of self-awareness. That plastic didn't come off. So I'm like that too. Like, for example, I've been writing for 30 years and everyone asks me, when are you gonna put your book out? And I'm so creative with stuff that I'm like this artist that can never finish a painting because I have a new idea. Instead of going, I remember reading years ago, a maxim, art is never done. And so my self-awareness, like I have this clarity goes like, you just need to write your book. Why do you keep, and I get my own explanation, but if you were my publisher, you'd have said, hey, give me back your advance, you suck, you committed to do this. So I get that, I agree with you. I have that self-awareness. I haven't committed to stopping everything else and I'm just writing the book, So it's I don't know if that Apple phone thing popped into my head. It was like, I think I'm using this right, and I think I know what I'm doing, but no, there's another level.
True. That's so true, isn't it? So the guy knew intuitively like how to use the phone, and he sees so much greatness in it.
And could still, because you can still use the touchscreen was still working, the phone would ring, but he's just going like it doesn't have the right volume.
But we just have to peel away other people's opinions, other people's suggestions, or just us trying to do the right thing.
There's always another layer in this metaphoric onion where you get down to. And so I've gotten to the point where, for me, I don't have fear of writing the book. I'm a good writer. It's just, when am I going to prioritize it with all the other things I think are super important?
Yeah. And so again, going back to the entrepreneur who's saying, all right, typically on the Empire podcast, where, hey Bedros, hey Craig, give us some tactical stuff to market, to increase the volume of sales, to increase the lifetime value of a client. Well, all that happens once you've overcome this fear of building the product and selling the product. So the fear component, the mental component, the emotional component is critical. Going back to peeling the layers off. For most people, how many layers deep do you think the real solution is?
The real answer, that really depends on who that person is and what their upbringing was. You, being an immigrant, got exposed to a different lifestyle and experience and a work ethic that many of this generation, entitled, like get things fast, quick fix, your transformation would happen way faster than somebody else that grew up like, silver spoon in their mouth, can't figure out, why things aren't working. And so the real answer for me is, like, it's not automaton, robotic, like if you do this, you're immediately successful, and it's like, here, buy my app. It's, you got to peel 3 layers, right?
Right.
This isn't like a dermabrasion or something.
Right. So it's 3 layers for someone, it's 30 layers for another person.
Right. And then, and it's weird. It's when you like all the great stuff that you put out in terms of, like, you guys have reverse engineered success and those steps towards success and greatness. I mean, if you study any great business person, there's certain pillars and milestones of behavior that, when you reverse engineer it, they're consistent across all domains and fields.
Right.
But why does this guy commit suicide? Why is this guy successful? Why does this have 3 heart attacks, but he's a billionaire? Like, I've known people who are incredibly wealthy and they're incredibly miserable. I know people who, they look on the outside, they got all this shit going, and they're on their 3rd heart attack. It all comes back to me, is really about developing yourself. If I had a friend of mine, I play guitar. I'm not very good, but I was taking lessons years ago, and this guy he played on session stuff for famous people, and one of the best guitarists I've ever seen. I would just sit there with my mouth open watching him play. And I said to him, his name was Mark, I said, Mark, like, why aren't you on stage? You're like a guitar god. And he was a stay-at-home dad. His wife worked so that he could teach guitar and play sessions. And he said, I don't do drugs and I don't like parties. But he was so like he didn't want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
I wanted him to be a rock star.
But he had clarity on what he
Right.
wanted.
He had self-awareness. Yeah. So he didn't live, he wasn't miserable that everyone would go, dude, come to this party, you got to see the. I'm not interested. I'm raising my son. I play guitar every day. I teach guitar. And then when Sting comes to town, I play on his, in the back of the police, and like, he was working with like really high end.
Yeah.
And he was just happy.
I mean, how many people go and take someone else's advice? Because you were just trying to be friendly, give him great advice. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mark, why aren't you on stage yourself?
Right.
But he was so self-aware that he goes, here's the 3 reasons why, and so I'm happy.
Right.
And it all leads to happiness. At the end of the day, I remember reading a study saying that if you ask someone why they're doing something, so, hey, Tony, why are you working, why is your whole life based on fear management, fear mitigation? And if we kept asking you why, you might say, well, why? Because I want to make the world a safer place, right? That was your first answer. Well, why do you want to make the world a safer place? And keep asking why. They say if you ask that 7 to 9 times, the answer is because it makes me happy. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it makes you happy. In fact, the most selfish thing we do is donate to charities, even though it seems like the most selfless thing. Like, oh, I'm going to go help that charity. I'm going to build a well in their community. I'm going to help a group of kids in that organization. But in reality, why do we do it? It feels good.
Right.
And if it feels good, it makes us happy.
Right.
And so this guy knows that being on stage and drugs and late nights and alcohol is not his thing. Mm-hmm. Yet people around him who see his talent, who think they want the best for him, go, hey man, you should be on stage rocking and rolling.
Right.
So many of us listen to others instead of the inside voice, right? Where it's concerned. And for entrepreneurs, I wonder how many entrepreneurs right now have jobs that are meaningless, dead-end jobs, but they have these amazing ideas that will never come to fruition, which means there's probably tens of thousands of people they'll never help because they're listening to someone else about playing it safe with their job.
And what's holding them back? Because I agree with you at that level. That kid at home who's mom or buddy or wife, or I mean, my first wife. When I said to her, I was teaching self-defense privately. I was working 40, 50 hours a week for my dad in the clothing business. And then I would, after work, finish at 6, 7 o'clock, drive to people's house teaching. It was like the thing I asked, like I said earlier, if there was no money or food or anything like that, what would I be doing? I'd be teaching self-defense. I loved it. It made me happy.
Yeah.
And so I'd still do that. And then one day I said, I'm going to stop working for my dad. And I said to my wife, I'm going to stop working for my dad and open up a martial arts school and teach self-defense. And she looked at me and she went, how are you going to do that? And as soon as she said that, I knew we were getting divorced. Like within a year, we were divorced. Because it was like, you don't believe in me. You don't, but that's also a level of self-awareness too, right? I had to do what I had to do.
That is. It's funny you say that. So I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, about 1,600 entrepreneurs through various coaching programs, masterminds, or just private one-on-one coaching clients. And it's funny, as I see entrepreneurs grow, I always clench because if their relationship at home is not strong, there's an inevitable divorce coming. And it boils down to one thing. When I hear from them 6 months, 8 months, 15 months later that, hey, I'm in the process of getting a divorce, I'll ask why, even though I know the answer. It's because the entrepreneur had hope. He or she wanted to do something new, different, and bigger, better. He had hope. She or him, whoever the other spouse is, had doubt. And if they don't both have hope together, it's not going to happen. And so I always see the common pattern, like, uh-oh.
Do you also see that if there was it's like protein, fat, and carbs, right? If in the metaphor, if protein is just, I want to make money, and the fat is, I want to have security, and the carbs are, I need more volume, or I need more followers, I need more. If you don't have a proper balance, it's a work-life balance. But underneath all of that, there's got to be some synthesis, and that's the self-awareness, fear management part. So, when I was 50 years old, I lost a $12 million company, and I went from making $500,000 a year to zero from Friday to Monday in 3 days. Dissolved my company. My wife is crying, freaking out. We had our green cards. We were living in Virginia, and she's crying. She says, "What are we going to do?" And she's thinking, we got to move back to Canada where we got family and support. Right. And I said, I was talking at a counterterrorism conference in San Diego, and I said, buy tickets for everybody. We'll move to San Diego. And she said, what? I said, yeah, I heard the weather's amazing there. If we're going to be homeless, let's be homeless in San Diego. Sure. So she starts cry laughing, where I had vision and hope with it.
Yeah.
I was scared shitless, but because she understood fear and fear management because of the years together, I was able to take her doubt and recalibrate that. So we were scared together, but we had hope together.
Yeah, and that's really it. And if we can end this podcast on any note here, where fear management is concerned, where feeling the fear and doing it anyway, it's about these 4 words. Right. So I want you to kind of explain this to our viewers. I'm wearing a shirt, for those of you listening to the podcast and not watching it on YouTube, I'm wearing a black shirt with big white font that says, fuck fear. But as it turns out, as you taught us in the workshop here that you ran for our team at HQ, fuck is an acronym. It stands for something. Can you tell us what fuck stands for?
So when you get a fear spike for anything, in business and relationship, you're scared to say I'm sorry, you're scared to say I love you, you're scared to ask for a loan, you're scared to tell somebody, hey, we need to move, expand, whatever it is. There's always a fear spike. A fear spike will create hesitation. Hesitation creates doubt. Doubt, if you fixate on doubt, it will create anxiety, and now you didn't do shit, and maybe you lost that opportunity, that window's gone. So I created the acronym Fuck Fear. Obviously, it's part of our whole process of managing fear. But F stands for face it, because when you commit to face something, you then move to part 2, which is to understand it. And now you're researching it, whether it's Google, a doctor, a mentor, some spiritual guide, whatever. Now you're understanding it. It doesn't eliminate the fear. it dissipates its hold on you because it moves from an emotional place to a more cerebral cognitive thing. So the C is to control or confront it, right? And I've got to now try to control it, but it's very important that we clarify that it doesn't ever dissipate. You don't eradicate fear. And then the K is the no fear, and because everyone they want to get to that place of no fear, no fear. And I go, it doesn't exist. There's going to always be a new stimulus, a new concern that triggers some sort of physiological response to it. And now we're back in that cycle of doubt, hesitation, panic, or avoidance. So face it, understand it, confront it, know it. Fuck fear.
Fuck fear. What a great way to end this podcast. Tony, if someone wants to get a hold of you, learn more about your programs and teachings, where would they go to learn this?
Google us. We got a lot of free content online, but Instagram, Tony Blauer, Blauer Spear websites. We got a bunch of websites. If you just go to Blauer Spear, Google Tony Blauer, they'll find us.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of the Empire Podcast. Now, the greatest compliment that you can give to us is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all of your friends. So please go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, and then share it online and social media with everyone that you know, and make sure to tag us because we love hearing from Empire listeners.
And if you own a business that's doing $500,000 or more in annual revenues, and you know it's got massive potential, and you'd like myself and Craig Ballantyne to help you scale it by 5x, 10x, and 20x in the shortest amount of time possible, then you might be a great candidate for the Empire Mastermind program that we have. To learn more about the Empire Mastermind program, go to bedroskeuilian.com/empire.